The structure of the pyramid is not just to measure the earth, it's to measure a machine that can open a stargate. A war is coming, he said. And this was 2 weeks before everything started to happen. A war is coming, and when everything is covered in ashes, the task of those who are awakened will be to find the sparks in between.
It's a big realization not long ago. I realized that enlightenment is when the expression of love that you experience and feel exceeds and supersedes the desire for one objective truth.
Like, it's too much. And I said, well, and is this all real? And I was like, and if it's not, we are having a lot of fun.
Matías De Stefano, what a pleasure to have you here. I'm so excited to have this podcast. I had visions of us having this podcast discussion together even before we met. I had a feeling that this time would come, and I didn't want to rush it because I knew it was going to happen exactly on the time it was supposed to happen. And then our paths crossed in May. And I can tell you how I felt. It's weird because I keep getting all of these kind of visions and things. And most of mine come in the form of numbers and mathematics and geometry, right? And explaining kind of like physics as well. Very detailed things. And they've been happening with me since I was, I guess it was about 2014 is when I started getting them in a major way. And I thought, what's happening here? This doesn't really make sense. It's not, according to my background, you know, I was a pharmaceutical CEO, right? And you have a totally different background coming into this, but you've been having visions and intuitive kind of bursts and feelings since when? When did it start for you?
Since I was born, always. Now I'm curious when this started for you.
It started on July 14th. It started on, I was very interested in math always, but it really started where I started getting downloads, hundreds of pages of it in 2014, on July 14th, 2014. So it was Bastille Day.
2014. Okay. Now, because
so almost 10 years ago. It'll be 10 years ago in July.
Okay. Because I always was connected to everything in different ways since I was born. But when I was 11, I think I started to connect in a much deeper level with other informations of memories of past lives, of things that happened in between lives. When I was 16, I started with 15. I started with remembering the universe and what I was doing in the universe and the loss of the universe and stuff. So I started to go deeper into the non-physical reality when I was 15. But even though I always had a guidance from that, and it's funny what you were sharing, because I remember that I was good in math when I was young, like until I was 12 or 11. I was the best in math in class. And suddenly when I started to remember between 11, 12 years old, suddenly all the numbers disappeared from my head. And I couldn't think in numbers. I couldn't understand numbers. I couldn't make 2 plus 2. It was impossible. So I said, why is this happening to me? Why I don't understand this? And they said, because others will take care of it. I was wondering.
So you just say that to your teacher. You know,
yeah,
I didn't do my homework because others will take care of it.
Others will take care of it.
That's epic. So how old are you now?
36.
36.
Yes.
Okay, so this
36.
happened, you know, for you, I guess around 24 years ago. When you were like 12 years old?
I was, no, it was 13, 14 years old. So it was almost 14 years ago that happened. And when I was 15, I started to remember the cosmos. And it was all about remembering. For me, it was like, okay, I remember that I did this, I did that. And and suddenly when my head was like connecting the dots, like every time that I remember something in the past, I understood something that was happening here, the codes that were around me. So since I was 15, I was very used to read the codes that were in my reality around, without books, without numbers, without any of that. I was just following the clues that were hidden, like the patterns that were hidden everywhere. And I was, when I figured out something, a new memory unlocked. So
same with me.
it was like how do you call it? Like,
It's like a game.
like a game, yeah, like opening new levels. And sometimes it was the same information, but in a completely different way, and so on. So that took me to help people to remember too, to understand a different level of the things. But I always complain because my nature is spiritual, and I don't like spirituality. I usually say that. It's my inner conflict. I was born in a family that was agnostic, so it was more about science than spirituality, and I was born with all this, not being able to understand the numbers, not being able to understand the science per se. So for me, it was very tough, that part. But I had never engaged with spirituality until I was 18. So I actually met spiritual people when I was 18 years old, not before. And so I always wanted to know how these things that I'm receiving or that I'm connecting with the universe can be applicable for people in life. Like, how can we do this for society, for economics, for these kind of things. But even though every time that I did that, my guides, the masters, took me to meditate to the middle of the mountain and said, feel the air, receive the data, the information, and then share it. But it was also spiritual that I felt like, this is going to be so weird. I had no idea that so many people were open to listen, actually.
It's interesting you say that, because actually for me, in about 2005, 2006 is the first time I started becoming, I wouldn't say spiritual yet, but more philosophical.
Yeah, totally.
I started realizing how things were connected, and the things that I thought were opposites were actually just different degrees of the same thing.
Yeah.
And I really came to a head on that probably around 2008, 2009, 2010. So probably when you were in your early 20s as well. That was the time that I started to really feel into spiritual. But I didn't start remembering things like in a massive way and getting downloads or memories of things until I would say 2011, 12, 13. And then 2014, it came like a rush.
Yeah.
And it came for me when someone gave me a photograph from 1942. I was at Harvard Business School. I was leading a group of people that were in an executive MBA program. And I had gone there, and my professors were actually the teachers for the class and everything. And I was founding a new company, Crown Sterling at the time, which previously, we had thought it might end up getting more into banking. But my original vision always at the time was to have a platform that allowed for, and I felt this was important, privacy.
Yeah.
That privacy would be a critical aspect of the future. And I felt it was so important. So I ended up having to do fingerprints for a filing with FINRA, because we might become a bank or something at the time. Yeah. And FINRA is a regulatory body that does this. So this guy comes and he hands me a bunch of photographs, and he says, this is just my day job. He said, actually, what I am is I'm a psychic, and I do past life regressions. And I brought you some photographs because this job helps me meet the people I'm supposed to meet.
Oh, wow.
And so I thought, this is so weird, right? I'm like, what the hell? I mean, I'm from Southern California. I didn't expect to see this in Boston, or, in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And so he says this to me, and he says, pick the photograph you recognize. And it was a picture of, I saw like 10 photographs, and I only recognized one. And I have a photographic memory, so I've always been able to memorize things easily. And I couldn't place how I remembered it, but I remembered it. I didn't remember it as a photograph, though. I remembered it like in real life.
Yeah.
And he says, "You recognize that?" I said, "Yes." He said, "You were there."
Oh.
And it was a picture of Franklin Delano Roosevelt giving a speech in 1942 in Boston. And I remember it well because he had his hand over his podium like this. And I looked at the photograph. I didn't think anything of it. And he had said something about my business partner who was there as well. And he said, "Oh, the reason he acted this way, your partner, was because in his previous life, he used to clean the elephant cages." And I'm like, and it's from India. And I said, "No way, really?" Because immediately I remembered his apartment in New York City was full of images of elephants. And he worships Ganesh, right? That was his whole thing. He's like all about elephants. So I'm like, I've got some material. I'll be making fun of my business partner forever now, right? And I'm like, yeah, here, have an elephant. And I didn't even know what it was going to do. But I went back to my desk. I opened my notebook to listen to this boring lecture on production operation management, which is really boring. But the professor is really bombastic and very animated, this lesbian woman. And if you don't listen, she'll like slap you in the middle of the class. She'll come and verbally slap you. And I open my notebook and I start writing out stuff like what's on the wall right there.
Yeah.
Right. And just page after page after page after page, like a memory just came as a current.
Yeah.
And I was just channeling as this memory.
Yeah.
And it was like physics and math and chemistry and biology and everything just coming in like this huge torrent of knowledge I don't remember studying in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And then people started seeing it, and then, you know, one thing led to another, and people were like, "Oh, you should publish this stuff." Next thing I know, my entire life changes trajectory to a different, you know, vector. And for me, it was like that. It was like this memory. And every time, and at first it would happen for like 3 days.
Yeah.
And then it wouldn't happen for like 6 weeks. And then it would happen, you know, 3 weeks later. And it would be like 3 days at a time. And I couldn't sleep for 3 days.
Yeah.
And then
the first time is like crazy.
Is that how it was for you too?
Yeah, because you cannot stop it.
You can't stop it.
You don't know how to stop it. You don't know how to relate with the reality. It just flows and flows and flows and doesn't make any sense. You have to write it. My guides were telling me, you just take notes of it, write about it, don't think about it, because they will make sense in the future. That was something that they used to say. So don't try to understand it now.
So you had the similar type thing? Was like that where you had blocks of time like this, and then you would have a bunch of downloads, memories, and then it would be fine for a few weeks, and then come back again.
Yeah. But mainly it was like this for me, at least since I was 12 till I was 18. It was constantly like that. Even writing stuff that I have no idea even today what they mean. Some codes with some pyramids and stuff that I never pay attention to. I don't know. I was much more related to the emotional thing than the actual data and codes, because I didn't understand it. So I wasn't called to it. So I just took notes of it, and some of it got lost. But I was much more concerned, as I was remembering, about the people that lived that and how they overcome the situations, and how to explain to others around, because my thing was about education, how to help children to understand this, or how to help children to go through this while they start to remember. So that was my concern, how to make parents and teachers to understand that the students are remembering, you know? So so because that was my concern, I started to go more into linguistics and education than actually the structures and geometry.
That's amazing. But see, funny you say that, because I was always a linguist. I learned 8 languages in my lifetime. You know, I learned Korean, Japanese, Mandarin Chinese, French, German, Spanish, and Hebrew. And I started looking at math as a language.
Yeah, it is.
For me, it was like, okay, so I want to find subject, verb, object of mathematics, right? I want to find what is the syntax. And that's when I realized that in mathematics, the verbs or the words of action are these irrational numbers that have no end to them. They can do activities. They can make things. Then you have the sentences are geometric forms, geometric shapes that can inscribe within circles, right? And the syntax becomes the combination of all these geometric forms as well. So I was like, wait, so the words are like the numbers themselves. The sentences become the geometric forms that are shaped within this with overlapping circles that give the intersection points for them. And this is a language. So when I started realizing it was a language, then I started studying and it wasn't even studying because I started downloading more and more mathematics and then publishing it. Publishing it in, places and started just posting my artwork. And then it started taking off. But for me, it started to change. I'm interested to know if it happened for you this way too. I went from having it like every 6 weeks or 9 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. It was always kind of a 3-6-9 relationship. I noticed it was also tied to the moon cycle for me. But then it started becoming more and more and more and more. And now it's literally every day. I just learned how to live with it now. It never stops. I just learn how to be comfortable and go to sleep at night and I'm okay, right? I'm not like grabbing my calculator in the middle of the night trying to figure out what this numerical code is. Because
it's otherwise that's the limit of becoming crazy. Well, you were publishing things about your discoveries. I was the weirdo in classroom. So I was a weird guy that
I can imagine.
This guy is weird.
Was that hard for you?
Kind of. I had many friends that were with me. I was not alone. I never was. So it was not that difficult. I wouldn't say that. It was difficult because it was weird what was happening. But I have teachers in school that believed me, that knew what I was living through. Friends that were always with me, and if I had a download or whatever, they would ask me what was it, so I was never really alone. And usually the people that called me crazy in school, they were the ones that when we were alone, they came and asked me questions. So even though they called me crazy in front of the others, they had questions for me when we were alone. So what you were saying, it was a period of a lot of information that got me really crazy. It got me thinking about what is all this for? I have a mission. I have to do something. If I don't do it, I don't know what is going to happen. These kind of things. This kind of Messiah thing, that you feel important because you're receiving all this. But suddenly, as the time goes by and you start to see how, everything is related, but that becomes your normal thing. And instead of getting crazy of saying, I have to do it, you just flow with it and just enjoy it. And you can sleep at night. Tomorrow I will receive something else, or this kind of things like, oh, well, I will go to New York, but I have to go to the needle. No, I'm going to go to eat in a restaurant with a friend,
Yes.
So it's not always about making that the only thing that happens in your life. And that's what makes it constant, but smooth.
That makes total sense for me too, because also very analogous to my own experience, because as I look at the history of it now, I felt like in the early stages of it, I have to keep doing it, otherwise I'll lose it. Or I'll forget it, or something won't work. I have to write it down, or I have to record it somehow, some way. And then after a while, like you said, I started just feeling comfortable to know that if I don't understand it all right now, I don't need to understand it all right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything is as it should be.
Yeah, totally.
And that was a big change for me, because I was like, okay, I can kind of relax now. It will come. And sometimes it comes in the moments you least expect. It's like you're doing something entirely different, and you realize, it also taught me that everything is kind of like already set. I feel like sometimes we're watching a movie backwards
Yeah.
that we already made.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Do you feel like that too?
And it's that relax you too, because basically the third dimension, the matter, is just the expression of something that existed before, which is the fifth dimension. And the fifth dimension is everything. All information is there. So that means that you know the whole pattern, you know the whole thing, and you're just manifesting it, living it in the third dimension. So that's why the feeling of I am just living the book that I wrote.
Yes.
So I kind of know what is going to happen, but I don't remember exactly what I wrote. So it's like remembering the future somehow. So and that's the fun thing, the trust that you in some dimension already know what is going to happen. So you just have to flow, because you are living in one page, and sometimes we rush because we want to end the book, but actually you have to live every page to make sense of everything. So if you don't go step by step, you don't get the whole picture. And I think that when you start to relax about it, not willing to finish it, but to enjoy it, enjoy the book, enjoy the movie, totally. You know, you start to receive more things, and more incredible things happen, like this. I just came from the needle in New York.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no way. I was working with that. Yeah. So this kind of amazing things happen when you start to relax and not thinking that this is the only thing and I have to do it, because it's already written. So there's no way you can escape if you are open to receive it. So it will come in any possible way to let you know, hey, you forgot this.
Doesn't that give you comfort too? Because to me, when I had that realization finally, I let go of the idea of my destiny would not be fulfilled, because I knew that the destiny is already set.
Yeah.
It's like I realized that destiny is the free will of the higher self.
Yeah.
It is free will.
Exactly.
Right? But it's already set. And so the past, we all can imagine a math equation that might be related to the past, the present, maybe past times present, past plus the present equals the future, right? Or maybe the possibilities of the future. But what we don't recognize is that the two are always entangled.
Yeah.
So that means that the future and the present determine the past.
Yes.
Even the way we perceive things, this is how history can change, right? History changes all the time. When we think we had the worst experience happen to us, actually, with some time, we could look back and say, oh, it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah. And then you understand why it happened and everything, and it changed the perspective completely of what was happening. So suddenly you change the past.
Yes. So I had this, I was talking with someone the other day, and I said, maybe mystery of the future is really just the history of what we've already chosen.
Yeah.
The mystery, which I always thought also there was a play on words, because miss is like Mrs. or miss, right? Mystery is also the history that we've already chosen. I feel there's some solace in that, because then I can kind of relax a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to make a mistake, right? It's going to be, if I make a mistake, then that was already intended.
Yeah.
It was for a higher purpose.
Totally. That's how I saw every step that I did, that I felt I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Then I stopped saying I'm doing it wrong, and I started to say I'm getting ready for it. Like I'm getting prepared. Everything that I do wrong is like, oh, that was not the right way. Okay, I'm gonna tune it to a new one. So it's you start to build up the confidence on the system, and I think that the main mistakes that we can do is that because we are multidimensional and we can create many realities or possible future for one thing, is that we tend not to fulfill our destiny or our purpose when we are closed to think that it's only on us.
Yeah.
Because
that resonates.
That's that thing of the Messiah thing. Like, oh, it's me, or I have this and it's me. And how many people are feeling the same? That means that we are a team. We are all a team, and each one has a different side or part to play in all this. It's just that we usually tend to separate ourselves from the others. So we forget that we are all in the same wave.
Yeah.
We are all connected. So I relaxed very much when I knew that the other parts of my task were being held by other people.
You don't have to learn math.
I don't have to learn math. You already know. So now I have your WhatsApp. I send you a message.
That's right. You said
like, what is this number? You know?
That's true.
So you have all these years experience in that. So so and then if you don't understand something, you ask me in another perception. So I think that this is how we actually should work. Like everyone is preparing for some specific thing. And as I said, also science has been trying to understand the different ways in which the spirit manifested all this. And we are still trying to, science tried to take away spirituality, and spirituality take away science. Like, no. They're just tools for the same thing.
That's right.
So it's just that some of you have been getting ready to understand specifically and perfectly one side, and the other one's the other side. So if you put it together, you get so much data, so much information.
So I've not talked about this before publicly. I don't even know that I've really told you the whole story. But in 2018, in 2017, I went to the pyramid, Great Pyramid, for the first time. And I was there with Nassim Haramein, who's a physicist.
Yes.
And he had a group of about 175 people, almost 200 people. And we spent the night at the pyramids, and we did this whole experience there. And there was such a unique, powerful experience related to it that even the Russian government sent an email that we were informed of from the Egyptian government saying, what did you do in the pyramid last night? Who was there? Because there was an electromagnetic pulse that came off of the pyramid that was picked up by our satellites. We actually got a copy of the letter. And the Russians were tracking it, which was very bizarre. And it also happened at the exact same time that in Vegas, at the fake pyramid, all those people were killed, right? It was a terrible shooting. You might remember there were 500 people that were shot at the, from the Mandalay Bay hotel, and they were dancing in front of the Luxor pyramid, right? Which is kind of like a weird reflection of things. And so while we were there, I had this experience, and I decided that it was such a powerful experience that I had to go back to Egypt. So I went back. I was already planning a trip with my YPO friends who were going, all of us, to Israel in the following May. So about 222 days after I went to the Great Pyramid. And I invited them, after we spent a week in Israel, to go to the Great Pyramid with me. And so 12 of them came with me. So we went to the Great Pyramid, and the entire week I was drawing in my notebook Alpha Omega, Alpha Omega, Alpha Omega. I don't know why. When I was in Israel, I got baptized in the Jordan River, and that was completely by chance. We stopped to get gasoline along the Jordan River, and it was like, oh, this is where Jesus was baptized. Does anyone want to get baptized, type of thing? And so we all did it, which was like 40 of us went and did it. It's like, well, if you're there, when in Rome, type of thing, right? Of Hopefully it meant something to people. For me, it meant something very deep, because I knew I was on some sort of journey. I felt it. And so I was drawing this Alpha Omega, and the night before I went to Egypt, I discovered in the cave under the Dome of the Rock. I was in the caves. We had a dinner there.
Yeah.
It was like a state-level dinner. It was beautiful. Candelabras and a harpist and everything, and I was the leader of it, so I was asked to give a speech. So I said, where's the bathroom? And I climbed went through the tunnels in the dark, and I jumped over the fence that said, do not enter, right? And I went in to try to find where the Ark of the Covenant was hidden for maybe as much as over 1,000 years in Zedekiah's cave, which is where, when at the time of King Zedekiah, this is when Nebuchadnezzar came and attacked Jerusalem and then took the children of Israel into slavery, into bondage, back to Babylon, right? So I was in there, and I found this mound of limestone that had turned to quartz crystal. And something told me to look down. I looked down on the floor, and in the floor was an Alpha Omega carved in the floor. in the exact same spot. So I thought, oh, maybe this is why I've been drawing it in my notebooks. I had no idea. Then the next night, so this was on May 6th. Then on May 7th, I went to Egypt. And I was there in the Great Pyramid, and I had a memory. One of my friends was laying in the sarcophagus, and I had a memory. And I remembered being there when an Alpha Omega was placed on the rim of the sarcophagus. And I looked down exactly, and it was like a blue-green light coming down on top of this. And I looked down on the rim of the sarcophagus, and exactly where I remembered it, I noticed through the light, was very hard to see, I noticed an Alpha Omega on the rim of the sarcophagus.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the? I couldn't believe it. So I grabbed Muhammad Ibrahim and a bunch of other Egyptologists who were with us. And I said, have you guys ever seen this before? It's an Alpha Omega on the rim of the sarcophagus. And he said, no. Did you make this? I'm like, yeah, I chipped it out right now. Come on, it's made of rose granite. If you try to take a
It's
chip,
impossible.
it's impossible, right? The whole thing would shatter. And dolerite is some of the hardest stone on planet Earth. It's 55% quartz crystal.
Yeah.
So I saw that, and in my memory, there were 5 people in the room. You were one of the people. And you know one of the other people that was there, and I didn't know you then, but you were not in your form of now,
Yeah.
right? You were a woman in the room. I remember it clear as day, to this day.
Yeah.
And the moment that I saw that, I was like, I knew something had changed. Something had shifted. So then I looked at it from a mathematical perspective, and I noticed that all the proportions of it were matching the room's proportions, right? And there was even like a little signature stamp on the back side of it that looks like a compass,
Yeah.
like an architect would do, with a circle around it and degree markings in the center of it. And I was like, this is something more. And I didn't know what it was at the time. I just knew it felt very holy, right? And I had been visited also in 2017 by Arcturians. And that actually was a continuation of an experience I had when I was, only 11 years old in England at Rendlesham. I lived in Rendlesham Forest. Right? There was a famous sighting there of extraterrestrials that are actually not extraterrestrial at all. They're originally from Earth.
Yeah.
They said
They never
that they're
left.
from the future, right?
Yeah.
So as we go into this sort of fifth dimension, all of us are getting more and more of these types of experiences. And the reason I tell you that story is maybe you'll start remembering it too.
Yeah.
Right? That it was, so I knew as soon as I had dinner with Jurka, the CEO of Gaia, he told me, you have to meet Matías. You have to meet Matías. And I'm like, yeah, I want to meet him. Can you please connect us? And then he always forgot.
Yeah.
But I knew that we would cross paths at the exact right time. And so the question I have for you is, I've seen your television show on Gaia. I watched it. I was like, whoa, this is remarkably how I remember things as well. Can you remember those kinds of details?
Yeah. Yeah. I did my whole life, basically. And of course, some of them only open in specific moments with specific people because something is happening. Like, for example, there have been friends of mine that I have been friends with them for years, and I haven't had any memory of them until there was a specific moment that something happened and I remembered it all with detail. And some others that I'm still waiting for, like why I know this person or where from. And I think we have never been together in the Great Pyramid.
No.
Not
First
yet.
time we're going to do it together in December.
Yeah, first time. So maybe something will be unlocked there. I don't know. But from the pyramid, of course, I have many memories. Some of them very present till today. And of course, I was a woman in that moment. And most of the things that I remember is because they are vivid memories that not just ideas, but the people, the language, what we were eating, sharing, walking around. So many of my memories were more related about what we were living in the normal days than actually the pyramid itself, for example. I remember the pyramid because I remember it was one part of our tasks that we have to do as I was with the other students. So because of my sister, I remember the pyramid and so on. So yeah, it's very vivid. And there are for example, there are some selective memories. Like, for example, I cannot, if I stand up from the point of view of the Sphinx. Of course, the Sphinx was a lion, had no human face. And as I was looking into it, I cannot remember the other two pyramids. I can only remember Khephren. And even if I walk around or I try to remember everything that happened around, I can only remember one pyramid, not the three of them.
Interesting.
And even today, I don't exactly know why. I think it's because it's related more to my family and what we lived around it. So I'm much more emotionally connected to that pyramid. But what happened is that every time that I go inside that pyramid, I don't feel many things.
In Khephren.
In Khephren, yeah. So it's weird because from the outside, I feel this is the place I am related to. From the inside, I am not. So I don't know yet why that happens. I don't know why it's like that. But
you know, Khephren is a pyramid that represents the perfect circle. So it's the feminine. From the base to the apex of the pyramid creates a circle with a radius of 2. And that's the one circle that has, just like the triangle of 5, 12, 13, it has a circumference that's equal to its area. So it relates something to divine feminine.
Oh, so maybe that's why. Because we were in the school of women. So maybe we were more related to, I was a woman, my sister was there too. So we were more related to that pyramid. So my brain kind of took the other two away. I just remember the temple of Miserinos. I don't remember the pyramid. I remember the temple inside. I clearly remember sitting there reading stones with and clay with other students, writing it with feathers. And basically, one of my first memories, knowing my husband in that life, who today is a friend of mine, was at the door of that temple when he was asking for a specific scroll to take to, because of the social classes, we were learning in different places. So I was a student in Miserinos, which, well, was totally different around. And I remember him coming, knocking a wooden door, and we would open that wooden door, but he couldn't see me. Like I was like behind something, and I asked him, as a joke, I asked him to give me a key code for opening the door and give that to him. It was the first time that I saw him in my life, and my whole lives, and the keyword was, how would you say to a spirit to open the door? Like, tell me.
Abracadabra.
Yeah. And how would you say a spirit that is behind the door to open the door so I can see you? And he had to find a way to explain me that through the codes of the letters. And the answer is amma. And a is me, ma is door. So amma, I am me behind the door. It's the word for I am. It's me. I am. It's me.
Amma.
So it's behind the door. I find the spirit who is also looking at me. So that code I
Kind
remember.
of also reminds me of Maya.
Maya.
Yeah, because of the Maya is another way of looking at, like, even the month of May is like I am backwards,
Oh yeah, yeah,
right? Maya, and Ya often means I in
yeah.
many languages. So Amma.
Yeah,
It's a I
yeah.
am.
In the Atlantean was ya is the concept of something. So Maya is everything that is related or is a concept to me.
Ma, I amness.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So so for me, remembering that Amma,
Mm-hmm.
it gave the clue for me telling him life after life. When I am behind the door and you cannot see me,
Mm-hmm.
remember me, I am, and I will see you. So that's why, since that moment in Mykerinos pyramid, we were linked life after life. Until in this life, I told him Amma, and he remembered. So
Wow.
it was.
It's like giving the photograph that I got.
Yeah,
Same
exactly.
thing. All of a sudden, remembrance.
Yeah.
Wow. So, why do you think you have been born with these memories like this? What do you think the reason for it is?
Well, there are many reasons. Depends on when do you want to see it. Since I was a child, when I describe where I was in the universe, I describe actually the 8th dimension. And the 8th dimension is the toroid, is the information of all times. So I call it Thamtiorga, which is an Atlantean name for all the books that are seen by the one eye, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's another word for library.
Mm-hmm.
And so this network is like the Weaver's network, is a place or a concept, a dimension where the beings work like spiders, weaving webs, weaving the technology of the mind.
Mm-hmm.
So my task in that specific level was to send data codes to energy. So download mind into energy,
Mm-hmm.
mind into energy,
Mm-hmm.
mind. So my work was like, I felt like an electron on a internet cable, like that. The feeling is like being an electron in a cable for Wi-Fi. So that was the
Mm-hmm.
that was the feeling, like 11101 110 like this to color, like that was kind of the idea. So to translate it emotionally, when I wrote it and
Mm-hmm.
I tried to describe it as a 12-year-old boy, what I described was I used to travel the universe from one world to another, and I used to go to the souls that had no purpose and told them stories about the worlds that I had just seen. So I told a story. I have seen this in this world. So they fell in love with the stories, and they decided to go to those worlds to live. So they called me storyteller. I was like a storyteller of the universe, like many thousands of them. But actually, it was describing the task of an electron downloading
Mm-hmm.
information into energy, and so because of that, I remember I was tied to billions of souls that have been knowing where to go and what to do because of me. So I was tied to the memory of all these souls that have been living.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, I was connected to the memory of all of them. And when they all were born in this moment, in this reality, they created a net that I waved myself. So allowed me to exist.
Wow.
So that's one of the reasons why why I remember in this life, because I think that most of the souls that I was leading to do something, they are born today, even if I don't know them. Maybe they're just a tree or a pet, I don't know. But there are many of those that created the perfect pattern for me to come. Not to come for the first time, but to come remembering, because they unlocked it somehow by being born. The other reason of why I think I remember now is because in that life 12,000 years ago, in Atlantean Egypt, there were people from Sirius coming to meetings. They usually were covered like in veils, so nobody could see them. So they would walk through. We went to a part of the desert to look for them in boats, and we would bring them to the main hall of water in front of the Sphinx, to the temple, and the
river used to go all the way up to the front of the Sphinx.
Yeah, I remember that, the water in front, and so we would leave the ships there, and they would walk with us to these main temples, which one of the most important was the Temple of the Valley today. So as we were there, they used to sit like on this table or in like kind of a throne or something, very simple, but like a throne. They were all covered, and when they talked to each other, they would like bend the head to one another, like if they were trying to listen to each other, but they didn't speak. They just touched their heads, and that's it. And then they would communicate just with hands and symbols that someone would translate for us. But we all had to be like this. We shouldn't stare at them. And I remember staring. Like I remember like looking at them, and one of them turned like this and saw me in the eye, and in the moment, in the second that he saw me, I remembered what I was supposed to do, because he was talking through future. So he said something and told me that because I dared to see him, now my burden would be to remember my future. And this, he said that I would meet him in the mirror of time, which is 12,000 years after. So I remember this recording the second season of Gaia. I was recording, and
initiation.
Initiation, and Jurka started to ask me questions about the details.
I know where this is going.
And how is this and how this, and I don't usually think about it. So I went and started to describe what was happening exactly, and as I went and I saw it, I suddenly broke, because I saw the eye, I saw the whole thing, and I literally started to cry and fell on the floor, and I started to scream, "I shouldn't have seen his eyes," like this, and everyone in the studio were like, "What is going on?" So they had to take me out and everything, and I remember Jurka being very still and saying, "Do you want me to leave this recorded?" Or I was like, "I don't think so."
That's really funny.
Yeah, that's the other reason.
By the way, it's funny you say that, because one of the other people, there were 5 people in the King's Chamber with me when I remember this, and Jurka was one.
Oh, yeah.
So that's very bizarre. I have told Jurka that before in my memory. It's interesting because I started realizing, when I realized that the past and the future were inextricably tied together, then I started to realize that maybe what we think of as the distant past could also be the distant future.
Yeah.
That literally runs on a cycle What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, basically, it's all about it. One of the first memories of the universe that I had was when this essence or something told me, there is nothing else in the universe but future. There's nothing else exists but future. Why? Because future is something that is about to happen, but it doesn't happen. It's an idea that is projected, so it's mind, and the universe is mind. So the universe is a mind that doesn't know what it's thinking. So anything could be possible. And that makes that the future is the only and the first time ever existing. From the future, the universe created the option. And when the mind of the universe created the idea of the option, created the present. So present is an option in between all the possible futures that already exist.
Mm-hmm.
And the present structured the information of the future in such a way, in such a beautiful geometrical way, that structure a pattern that we call past. So the past is the last thing on existing in the universe. The future is the first one. So every time,
it's like an idea.
Yeah,
the realm of forms, platonic.
Exactly. So
platonic realm of forms.
So every time that you have a past or something that you call past is actually the materialization of an idea in the future. And
this is what I meant by we're watching a movie playing backwards.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of like that. And then it said, then other options are being projected from this new shape. So that's why it's eternal. So that's why it all come back to another future, which is the origin. And from the origin, you create another idea that creates another past. So it's a whole cycle, a constant cycle that is not actually describing things that happened or that will happen. They're just describing a cycle of imagination and manifestation of these two different realms of the mind that sometimes get together, sometimes expand, and it doesn't exist by itself. Like time is a trap of the subconscious,
mm-hmm.
of the idea that you are trapped in a specific line or in a specific existence.
So do you think the knowledge of this is an important aspect of coming into a fifth dimensional awareness?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah, because third dimension is basically the result, the past of all the system. So that's why we think that we are living the past actually. Mm-hmm. Is the structure. 3 dimensions of the space and 3 dimensions of the past. We cannot escape that unless we go to the 4th dimension and we start to mix the space and time in a different way. The future with our wide, or I don't know. So we start to mix these concepts in a very weird way. But the 5th dimension is the one that understands the interconnection between all of that, the pattern, the beauty of the pattern at the same moment, what we call here and now. That we made a mistake of believing that here and now is this. This is here and this is now that we are talking. But actually, the here and now can be only experienced in the 5th dimension, where everything and every moment is happening in information. So we have to set ourselves free from the idea of the Trinity to get into the 5th dimension. And otherwise we are trapped.
The Trinity of time.
The Trinity of time and Trinity of space.
Mm-hmm.
So this Holy Trinity is what kept us trapped here. The thing is that most of the people think that we are trapped. And we can use this word, like we are trapped. But not because someone trapped us or we are prisoners of someone.
We volunteered.
Exactly. It's like, okay, we created this beautiful Star of David, which is called Metatron's Cube.
Mm-hmm.
Or supercube, hypercube. And we said, so someone must live it. You know, like it's like if you design a dress and you never wear it. So you say, I need to wear this dress that I, you know, to see if it fits. So
it's like a game.
Exactly.
And we wanted to play it.
Yeah. So we put a tight corset on our waist. I was like, my gosh, I cannot breathe. Yeah, that's the third dimension that we design. But actually, is not a trap. It's how can you learn how to use it?
Exactly. How can you learn to transcend it by falling in love with it? In a way.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that I came to the realization of finally. Was like, everyone was asking me, how do I escape Earth? It's like an escape room game.
Oh yeah.
You know, and then it hit me, and I was like, we cannot escape it. We can transcend and go to a next level if we learn how to use it for our learning and to fall in love with it as it is.
Yeah, totally. And I must say, the Earth is the most fun place around. So
yeah, it's the best. It's the best amusement park by far.
It's, of course, today we can say that Earth is terrible because we have social media, and I think that's what actually changed everything. Because people before social media, before being disconnected from the news and everything that is happening today in the world, you were living your life without any clue of what it was happening on the other side of the planet. So that's why people were living less stressed and had more time to do stuff. Now we are too worried about things that doesn't even affect us directly. We are interconnected in a way that is a low vibration, not a high vibration interconnectivity. We are connected through suffering, through conflict, through survival, through success. So it's also low frequency energies that we are constantly trying to survive and escape the system. But if you go to a mountain or a forest and you sit for a moment, that changes completely. Like, Earth is beautiful. The third dimension is so amazing. I think that where we are really tired of is when we feel trapped in a social system that we created, in a culture that we created, but not Earth. Like, Earth is amazing. It's an amazing piece of creation. Like, it's so beautiful and has so many potentialities. Like, we are just judging the creation of Earth because of a few, 500,000 years of humanity. And when actually the planet has billions of years with amazing histories, amazing things that happened here, and it destroyed everything like 5 or 6 times, and we are still here. Everything is recreated again. So every time that we say, for example, that we reach a level of evolution that we cannot go longer, the Earth said, I think that's it. We have to go to another level of the 5th dimension to reinvent myself. And that was a massive extinction.
Yeah. And
everything burned down, and then we grow again with a different level, and so on. So, for example, recently I had no idea about this data, that flowers appeared in the dinosaur times, and so it might be like, oh yeah, for sure, but no, it's like, it's been the planet before dinosaurs have billions of years of evolution of plants that have covered the planet twice in 2 different or 3 different massive extinctions, and there was no flowers. Flowers appeared only during the dinosaur period, just because the insects had to adapt better against the beings that were eating them. So that was amazing to see how after 3 massive destructions and nothing was here, the Earth said once, maybe this time I will make flowers. So every time the Earth is reinventing itself from the 6th dimension, the 5th dimension, and manifesting it in the third dimension. So we are just another manifestation of an idea of the fifth dimension. So when we go to the fifth dimension, we are just seeing options of what would happen in the third one. So that's why when you're in the fifth dimension, you say, oh, finally I escape Earth. Suddenly you will say, well, but now I have to leave this idea. So you come back, or maybe you go to another planet, but also will be in the third dimension. So I think that this past, future, present trinity that we are trapped in, when you start to enjoy creation and the times for each one of those processes, you don't want to escape the planet. You just want to see what is coming next and what can you do for the next thing to come. That's why in every crisis or every conflict that we are living in the planet is, from my point of view, is another option to do it better, to try to find a better way.
When do you believe was your first incarnation here?
As a human?
As a human.
As a human, I remember a place for sure. It was Kazakhstan or some place like that. I remember living, following animals with my family. We were just walking around, maybe in the European, like someone like that. Mm-hmm. But there's not much. I remember just sitting around and my father telling us a story about why a rainbow exists. But that was it. That, for me, I think that's the first time that I was.
And how long ago do you feel like that was?
I think that might have been, I don't know, maybe 50,000 years ago. Not much, but yeah, maybe.
Interesting. So as you kind of go through this scavenger hunt, that we've both been kind of experiencing, during the break, you were telling me about your trip to the North Pole, and how everything sort of leads to the next thing. Same thing for me. Whenever I get a new math or a new geometric form or something, I take it in, and then it leads to the next thing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And it's like never ending.
Yeah.
It's never ending. So can you tell us a little bit about what you experienced when you went to the North Pole, and how is it relevant to what's happening in the world today?
I was starting to lead to the North Pole many years ago when I started to actually, I don't remember exactly the first moment that happened, but there was an information from the Great Pyramid of Giza that in 2015, I think I went inside. Someone made us the gift of renting the pyramid for us, which I had no idea that was possible. So we were there with other 3 friends, and I just sat down there and we started to hum. It was the first time that I did that, and suddenly I felt the presence of Thoth, Hermes, and he called me to the center, and he went inside of me, and he showed me through his eyes the geometry of the planet, and it showed me the magnetical field moving and all the geometry and all the nodes and this special places. And he started to say, all of this is you. You just have to remember the parts. And then I understood, remember, to put the members together. So you are not remembering the past. You are just putting together parts of an instrument that is a musical instrument, that some of them are in the past, some other chords are in the future, and they are all out of tune because no much people is taking care of the tune together. So when you tune that, you will remember that all of it is you. So every time that you go there to tune it, you have to say, I am this, I am this, I am this place, I am that, I am. So he started to explain me that, and he said, but the most important ones to calibrate are the North Pole and the South Pole. And the North Pole mainly because it's going to change. So go to the North Pole and open the path for the consciousness to move from the west to the east. So I started to pay attention to the north for the first time. And that led me to go many times to the North Pole. Not physically north, but Svalbard, the island that is closer to. So I went there for my 30th birthday, I don't know, I went like 4 times. And every time I was like more connected to the place. And the last time I received this information that on 2019, I received this information that the North Pole would be moving from Canada to Russia. And during that time, we had to meditate all together, connected to the north. And the way to connect to the north is through the Pyramid of Giza. So you go there, you enter, and as you go inside the chamber, it's like if you are in the North Pole all the time. That's why I had to go to Giza to do the whole I Am project in 2020 to 2021. And during all that year, apparently, the magnetical North Pole was changing from west to east. And it was aligning. And they said in September 2019, they said that the way in which that would happen is that all people should go to meditate. And only a virus could align the planet. And I started to think maybe there is a virus that can help. So I started to check online which type of viruses help humanity and so on. So I even designed bacteriophage. So the shape of
bacteriophage.
To put crystals in it and deliver it all over the planet, because it was a virus saving the planet. And a few months after that, COVID hit, and everyone had to be locked at home during the process in which the North Pole was moving to the other side. So it was like the Earth must stay still as the energy moves from the west to the east again. So that also means the shift from the right side to the left side of the
left to right brain.
The brain. So during all that process, we had to meditate. That's why we have to be pushed to be inside. That's what the being said before COVID happened. That was a month before. And so they said, whenever it finished, you have to go back to the North Pole. And understand why is important for all of us to understand what is hidden there. So I went to the North Pole, and the information was related to Arcos, which is the bear, the Arctic Ocean. Arctic means the bear. So the land of the bear is Arcadia. The ocean of the bear is Arcticos, Arctic. The king of the bear is Arctur. So King's Arthur, and the sword is actually the magnetical North Pole moving in the precession of the equinoxes in the rounded table, which is the 23 degrees of the planet. So as the planet moves, pointing the north stars, it points to the 12 nights, which are 12 stars in every degree. So it's the rounded table with the king and the sword, which is on earth, the magnetism. So that meant that the inner power of humanity turns upside down depending on which side the North Pole is. So it's more related to the movement of Earth than actually a human story. So humans started to explain the idea of it with people, but actually what he was describing is the movement of the planet. And all of that is encoded in the Great Pyramid.
Yeah.
So going inside the Great Pyramid and doing the same cycle, it activates that. It activates Arcturus, the northern star, the north.
You know that you may not have seen this yet,
Hmm.
but we discovered a bull and a cow on the wall, on the north wall, which represents Apis and Hathor.
Yeah.
But above that are two birds.
Mm-hmm.
One is a phoenix. The other is a Bennu, the Bennu bird, which is the Egyptian phoenix.
Yeah.
And then above that on the wall are the faces and heads of 4 bears
4 bears.
on the north wall.
Which is the cross of the north.
So representing, Ursa.
Yeah.
It's also representing Arcturus. And I think it's somehow related to what you're talking about. And it's on the north wall.
Yeah, for sure. Is the bear that is the symbol of this cross, and what they said there in the north is that in between many things is that we are trapped on a cross, which actually was meant to be a sword.
Yeah, like a Celtic cross, but it's actually from Excalibur.
Exactly. Yeah. So the St. Peter Square. Peter means pietra, which is stone. And the cross on the stone in Rome is actually a sword to take the power. So that was the symbolism.
Oh, you just gave me chills.
That was the symbolism of saying, until you don't know how to get your own power with the planet, you will be suffering. And every king will try to take the sword out of the stone. But in the meantime, you will suffer until you acknowledge your real power related to Earth. So that's Excalibur is actually the cross.
Yeah.
So, but you have to take it out and release the pain. So I went back to the North Pole again last year to sow the 24 runes of the Yggdrasil tree, which is the Norse tradition. So I put them in a circle around the island of Svalbard. I went on a boat for 11 days, I think.
This last summer, right? You sent
You
sent me pictures of it.
Yes. And
I didn't know about the 24.
Yeah. 24.
24 is the actual musical scale. There's 24 notes in a quarter tone scale. And each one of those notes is representing also in their proportions the height over the base of each of the pyramids. They're musical notes.
Yeah. Well, it's like Todd said, it's an instrument.
It's an instrument.
It's a musical instrument. If you know how to play it, you can travel through time. And
24 is the prime number pattern as well.
That's why next year is so important.
2024 is the big year.
Yeah.
This is the big year when I've been seeing that too and feeling it. It's going to be a mass awakening.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of things are being asked to do before that.
And a mass calamity at the same time.
Oh yeah, because is
at the one moment it'll be mass awakening and beautiful realization and ascension, and the other it will be absolute disaster.
Yeah, because everything breaks. All the ancient patterns, everything that got stuck. It's like, when you have stuck something inside of you for a long time and finally it is released, we call it disease. So diseases or conflicts that we have in our lives are not the problem. The problem is that you have been stuck in that within you for a long time, and instead of releasing it properly and finding the balance of it, you release it all at the same moment, and that's what we call disease, illness. So that's why a lot of people will feel relief because, now I can finally see the system and I can know what to do, and other people will feel sick because of that. So the same process will heal many people instantaneously, and will get sick many other people. Yeah, at the same time.
So you're going around the island with 24
So
relative to the runes.
Yeah, so I went there and I started to connect all that, and and I was putting the seeds of a tree. So the information was there are 24 trees around the world that are holy trees that people use to connect with God. So if you put them all together with the right honey of the right bee in the right pattern with the right song, and you will have alchemy to awaken human DNA. So they said that on the ice sheet of the North Pole, and they said, you have put the seeds, now you need the egg. And I said, I don't have any egg. And how can I find the egg? So I finished my trip. I was sitting on a bar waiting for my taxi to take me to the airport. And this Indian woman comes to me and said, are you Matías? I said, yeah. And I am just about to go to the port to take the same boat as you took to go there. But my task is this. And she pulls up an egg, a crystal egg, and said, what should I do? I was like, that was the other part of the task. But a feminine energy has to do it, which was to put the egg and activate the information of the feminine in the North Pole. So it all combines and get together. And she said, I draw this image, and she showed me the paper where she drew it for years. And on it, there was this shape, this structure of an egg that was like this, golden and silver. And I said, I saw that. And this is one of the things that we have to build for the future. And she said, well, I'm an architect. And she said, well, so we have to find a place where to do it. And I said, oh, no. She said, I have a connection with a being that tells me these numbers, but I don't know where. So the codes that she had there written were exactly the parallel latitude of Birtawil. And Birtawil is the philosopher's stone, the triangle. So all of that led me there, and it said, follow the X now. So I went to Canary Islands, following one part of the story, which was the tree of the apples, the first tree of knowledge, which was in the Garden of Hesperides. And that is Canary Islands. So I went there, and when I was there waiting for something, I said, where's the egg? Suddenly Vailana called me about, would you come to Greece? We have to double the cube. and Robert told me to double the cube, and I have no idea what it is. And we are going to Greece, and would you come? And I said, sure.
So wait, that was back in about a year ago then, like a year and a half ago.
Exactly, yeah.
So in June of like 22.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy.
That's crazy.
So that was...
No, it was now.
Well, you went again.
It was in June of this year.
June of this year.
Yeah.
Wow.
It all happened a few months ago.
Wow.
But it's been like a lifetime.
Because she went also in 2022.
Yeah.
She went in the summer of 2022 with Aubrey.
Yeah.
And I told her to sing music and to play. One of the things I did is I downloaded, right? Because I don't feel like I own any of the things, right? I may file patents, so I am protected to be able to use these things.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like I own any of it. And I post all of it. So I post it immediately, because after I filed patents on it, then I post it. And I've never asserted a patent against anybody. And I probably never would. I don't believe in it. I don't believe I own it. I don't believe I own any, because they're not from my own thoughts. None of it's from my own thoughts.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like a radio frequency that you pick up.
Yeah, totally.
And so I downloaded a musical tuning called Precise Temperament Tuning, which is now in 24 note. And the exact frequencies, I was told, are necessary for activating DNA. Yeah. Completely. And it has to be so precise, this music. So normally you have 1 hertz of frequency. So like 432, you're down to 1 hertz accuracy. 433, don't do that. 431, don't do that. 432. But what this requires, if we did it in its full extension, requires 12 decimal digits, decimal extension of accuracy. 1 trillionth of 1 hertz accuracy. And then it could completely activate our DNA because it's at the subtle level. This is what I was downloading when it came. Yeah. Right? So again, now is the time for us to share all of these things because the connections will automatically be made. Yes. Right? But if we don't share it, then everything happens on the timeline it's supposed to happen. Totally. But I never mentioned this to anybody else either, but that's the purpose of precise temperament tuning. So I told her, I said, go to the island, right? Delphi. Yeah. And to go to the temple of Apollo and sing particular music in a particular tone so that you could double the cube. Because you can't double through the major third. A major third would be like da, da, that's a major third. But normally it's 5/4 relationship. So 5/4. And that's the same as Menkaure pyramid. The height of Menkaure pyramid would be 5 units. The base, 1/2 the base is 4. So it's the 1.25 relationship. But Da Vinci is telling us to make a change to make it to 1.26 by the page number, 126. 1.25 to the 3rd power doesn't double the cube. It takes 1 to only 1.95. It's short 0.05. It cannot double the cube with that. So you're stuck in the same octave, and then any octaves after that start to break away from each other, right? Yeah. And all of our music right now is based on the square root of 2, which is duality. Yeah. The square root of 2. So the way we make our musical notes today is not in this precise temperament tuning. We take the roots of 2, the first root of 2, the second root of 2, the third root of 2, the fourth. The entire scale is based on the square root of 2, which is, when we listen to the square root of 2 as an interval in music, it sounds like the devil. Yeah. It's the baseline of duality. Yeah. But precise temperament tuning takes out the square root of 2, except for where it belongs, which is in the middle of the scale, the diminished 5th, the augmented 4th. It stays there. So doubling the cube means the knowledge of breaking out of this, to double this cube, which is where you went to Delphi, and where the Oracle of Delphi said, oh, you have to double the cube to Apollo, god of the sun, or Ra, in order to no longer suffer from sickness. Yeah. With the change in DNA, we will not suffer from sickness anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why I went there in Greece, and they said that the first sickness happened when we choose one upon the other, the 3. He said when we choose one option in between the 3, and that made me remember about the 3 snakes of Delphi, which are the Pythias, the wise ladies that usually gave the message there. So we have these 3 ladies that were receiving the information.
The oracle.
The oracle. And they were the 3 snakes, they call it. So when you choose one of them, the other 2 started the war against the 3rd one. And that's the same story of Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite with the apple. So the apple was the apple of discord, which is actually the chord in music.
Musical chord, yeah.
Exactly. You have 3 notes to create a chord.
You know what? That's called the tritone in music, and it sounds like devilishness. Yeah. The tritone is the scary. It's you make it to create fear with people.
So in order to create a balance, you need 3. But when you take out one of them, you create dissonance. So it's discord, which is the name of the goddess that gave the apple, and created the conflict on the wedding, on the celebration of life. So the conflict of the apple, which is actually a toroid, which is the fruit of life, choose love, which is Aphrodite. So Paris choose love in the story, which means that we decided to go through the path of love in humanity. So that's why we decided to go through emotions, and we stopped going through wisdom and will. So because of following only one, we started to divide our perception in love, which is a woman, a man, or feminine, masculine. So we started to leave that conflict constantly instead of philosophy, instead of the will. So Hera and Athena started a war against Aphrodite. And so this dissonance, this discord, was what took me to Troy. And Troy...
So led to the formation of Rome.
Exactly. So, which led for Rome. And the thing is that you have, like, if like the cube, like one cube is one reality, and doubling the cube is expressing the inside of that reality from inside to the outside, like in the fourth dimension, expanding that, which means taking the potentiality that you have within towards the outside in order to manifest God within, but in the outside. So right now in the system, we are controlled because we don't have the right chord, because we are still choosing between the three, one.
Yeah.
And
so you have discord and dissonance.
Exactly.
And duality.
Yeah. So, and as you see, the Trinity has been in conflict all the time. Like, for example, today, the most easy one to talk about is Christians, Jews, and Muslims. Like, the three are saying exactly the same. But exactly the same, with the same masters, the same prophets, the same God, with the same name. And even though they don't agree with each other. So what is going on is like there is a dissonance. So they said, go back to the north, create the path of 12 through 24,000 years, time and space, find the right angles for the right music. And when you do that, you set everyone free. But that's not one or two people task.
No.
This is many stories all combined, all together, that each one has a specific clue about something. Is music with plants, with food, with astronomy, with astrology, with science, with spirituality, with history, with
and even their
poetry.
Voices. Even their specific voices and their specific DNA.
Yeah,
it's all connected.
Because
like
there's
multi-factor
there's no one. Like if you discover, for example, something, and we put it online right now, just 10% of the people would hear it.
Yeah, that's right.
Or awaken about it, because the other people is like, some people will awake through heavy metal, some people will awake through classical music. So it's not only one.
Yeah,
is a specific type that is related to the structure of the different types of people. So,
and this is the new.
That's why it's the 12
Christ
nights.
Consciousness and the 12 nights.
Yeah, because it's 12 rays, 12 different songs, 12 different buildings, 12 different structures, knowledges. So they all combine the crown of the planet. And they said, when you form the crown of the planet, so the consciousness of the planet will change. But that means a lot of suffering, because we have built a reality upon suffering. So when it changes, it's going to be tough.
Okay, so you were channeling this and you got some messages.
Mm-hmm.
What were the messages, if you're willing to talk about them?
Where?
When you were looking at recently, when we talked at the break, you were saying that you got some messages, and specifically even to tell me something.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, of course we have to uncover it, and it will take days.
I'm sure.
And more information will come. But just to summarize the concept, I received this information of go find these codes in all the holy books or the sacred books that you could find. So I went to a library and I bought all the books that I resounded with that I needed to have.
You sent me a picture of that too.
Yeah, I sent you a picture of all the books, and I put them all like in a square shape, and I said, I cannot read all this. Like I have to go in a different way. So I took mushrooms, which is the fastest way. And I sat in the center and I started to read.
Kids, don't try this at home with your homework.
No. Well, maybe it helps.
Maybe. Once you're a little older, maybe.
But yeah, just not when you are 6 years old.
That's right.
So I was accessing the data of these books, and in between many of the things that happened, the being that was talking through me in that moment, he said to my friend who was like trying to take notes of everything, he said, tell the night of the Black Mountain, tell the Knight of the Black Mountain about this. And he pointed the sword of Excalibur and said that his stone is on the north, and the structure of the pyramid is not just to measure the earth, is to measure a machine that can open a stargate. And it went through that for a moment, related to building structures, manifesting the mathematics on land, doing it in Berta wheel, and it started to show many things. It was all related to basically building a portal that is out of time in order to align a new time and creating a new reality. And you have been calling that the New Jerusalem, and it's very related to it. It's basically the same thing with other words. Yeah.
So when did you get that? When was that?
Last week.
Last week.
That's why I'm still trying to process all the codes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I didn't even think of that, but when you said the Black Knight, I was like, or the Black Mountain, the Night of the Black Mountain.
The Night of the Black Mountain. Yeah.
And it's kind of bizarre because that's what I was recently knighted by the country of Montenegro, which means Black Mountain.
Yeah. Yeah. And something that my friend showed me that I had no idea about is about this map that has been done like, I don't know, 1,000 years ago, which describes Hyperborea, which is the civilization of the north.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a stone, a black stone in the center, which is Rupes Nigra.
Mm-hmm.
And in the ancient tradition, they said that it was a black mountain in the center of the North Pole that was a magnet that made all the compasses go there to the north. That was the belief that they had, because they couldn't understand the magnetical field of the planet. So they thought it was actually a stone or a mountain, and they call it the Black Mountain.
It's interesting because probably there would have been a pole shift probably 13,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So when the pyramids were built, this is one of the reasons why a lot of people think that the pyramids might be much, much older, like 80,000 years. I've heard some people say 13,000 years. Either the poles literally go back and forth into the same positions, right? Or it makes an argument potentially that it was really probably 13,000 years because if they're situated due north,
yeah,
all the pyramids are situated due north. If there was a pole shift, and there seems to be a pole shift every at least 13,000 years by what science believes today, then that would mean, or at least probably 12,000 years realistically, because the precession of equinox is probably 24,000, just as Sri Yukteswar wrote in Holy Science. And I believe that too, because it's as we get closer to our sister binary stars, our gravitational pull changes, which has an impact also on time.
Yeah.
It's like mass time dilation. And so this can be described as a triangle that's a 5, 12, 13 triangle. Because you could say also that the base of that triangle, if you double the 5, 12, 13, becomes 10, 24, 26. So the short side of the cycle would then be 22,000 years because it swings like a pendulum. And the long side becomes the hypotenuse, which is 26,000 years, 25,920. The average in the center is 24,000.
Yeah.
And that matches with special relativity as well, which is called, the mass time dilation, and the base becomes the velocity, which then shifts. Yeah. So our time experience becomes different. So the 10, 12, 13, or rather 10, 24, 26 triangle is the same as the 5, 12, 13 triangle. And this is also in the Enochian tables by John Dee. It looks like a cross in the center. And in the center, there are 5 positions. And then on the top to bottom, there's 13. And then left to right, there's 12. So it's giving you the proportions of the 5, 12, 13 triangle as well, pointing towards a new Jerusalem. And all of this work in Shakespeare, we believe, is pointing to that.
Yeah.
Right. And this was from Sir Francis Bacon, who wrote a book called Ben Shalem, the New Jerusalem. And all the founding fathers were also devotees of this notion of New Jerusalem. When they established the United States, many of them in their personal memoirs believed that they were establishing what would become the outpouring of the New Jerusalem here on earth, eventually, that would come as a result of that effort. So it's fascinating because all of these things are converging, and you and I had not even talked about any of this stuff, but we did talk a lot about Philosopher's Stone. And the Philosopher's Stone, and you've mentioned here on this, podcast several times, Bir Tawil.
Yes.
And Bir Tawil, for those, just to do a quick summary, Bir Tawil is a place that's almost like a forgotten land in a way. It's sandwiched between Sudan, which is directly to the south of Egypt, and Egypt. And it's a pretty large block of land that nobody wants to claim. And the reason they don't want to claim it is because there were some border disputes when England did a really bad job of exiting Palestine and Egypt, right? And the whole area of North Africa when they left. And so it became this area of dispute. And Egypt took back a certain part of the land, right, which is to the east of the Bir Tawil area. But they know they can't claim Bir Tawil now, because if they do, then it'll put in dispute this map line drawing that was messed up by the British. And so nobody wants to claim this land. And you mentioned it to me now. It's interesting because there are many pyramids close by that land. On the Sudanese side of the land.
It was part of the old kingdom of Kush.
The old kingdom of Kush. And this is where it gets so bizarre, the story.
The Black
as well.
Pharaohs.
Exactly. And so what's fascinating about it is that the pyramids that are in that area, if you look up Sudanese pyramids, you'll find they're exactly the 5, 12, 13 proportion.
Exactly.
The same as the Philosopher's Stone in Michael Myers' Atalanta Fusions drawing. And there's another place where we find the similar type of pyramid structure, and it's a place called Abu Rawash, which is where we're going to go. It's 8 kilometers north of Giza, and it sits 300 feet higher than Giza, so you look down upon Giza. And at one point in time, one of the pyramids there was a perfect equilateral triangle, which makes me think about the Trinity. Right? The Trinity. It's returning to the balance of the Trinity, which is divine aspect, right? So the other pyramid that's right next to it is the one on the back of the dollar bill. It's the same as the ones just on the outside of Bir Tawil. So you have the crown chakra, which is at the north part of Egypt, or what we call Lower Egypt,
Yeah.
right, coming down the Nile. And then you have the root, right, which would be down somewhere by where Bir Tawil is, right? And
Which
the
is
two
in
are
the-
connected.
Which is in the same line, 22
Degrees.
degrees, with Abu Simbel
Abu Simbel.
and all the temples there.
Yep.
Yep.
So Abu Simbel is already perceived by me. You know, when I went there a couple of months ago, I noticed that the Nile was actually like a Kundalini spine that goes up. It starts in Abu Simbel.
Yeah.
This is where, but actually, it's probably this is the same latitude
Yeah. It's
as
the same place.
as Bir Tawil.
Yeah. So the funny thing about Bir Tawil is that it's called a triangle also. They call it the triangle of Bir Tawil. And if you take the map, it's exactly that triangle. It's exactly the same pyramid. It's just that it was cut in a moment like it's cut. It doesn't have the shape.
It's that one.
Yeah.
It's exactly that shape.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Like this.
Mm-hmm.
So this place, Bir Tawil means deep well of water. So it's a deep well of water is where in the ancients call a place to connect with God. And that's why they used to build walls around deep wells of water. And those walls in Persian language is paradise. So a paradise is a place where there's a deep well of water, and Bir Tawil means that. And it's right in the center of this specific triangle, which represents the Philosopher's Stone. So what I believe is that that place there is waiting for us to do something related to the calibration of a building, the calibration of the earth, at least in the subconscious way, or maybe use it as a way to transcend this reality.
I had never heard of Bir Tawil until you told me about it. It was almost like a Mandela effect for me. You told me about it in May, and then I was at the United Nations in September, having dinner with the leaders of many nations. One of them was the governor of Nairobi, sitting next to me, and on the other side, so Kenya, the other side was this woman who I didn't know her. And she said, "This has been the most strange United Nations conference I've ever been to." And I was there to give a speech to the CEO summit where I told everybody that humanity doesn't need overlords anymore. I thought that wouldn't make me very popular, but everyone wanted to talk to me about it, right? And this woman came, sat next to me, and she said, "You know, this has been the most bizarre." She's a human rights attorney that works a lot in technology in London. And I remember she kind of looked like, do you remember David Bowie? David Bowie, the singer? He had a wife named Iman, and she kind of looked like Iman. So this very, very, Kushite look.
Yeah.
And so Somalian or Ethiopian. And she starts talking to me. She said, "Oh, I had the strangest meeting." I said, "Well, tell me what the strangest thing you experienced here was." And she said, "I met this guy who was told me he was interviewing to become the Minister of Foreign Affairs for a new country." And I said, "What's the country?" She said, "It's this place called Bir Tawil." And I'm like, "What?
Just heard
You
it.
have got to be kidding me." And she said, "Yes, it's like they're trying to establish, the old kingdom of Kush
Yeah.
there, and they're calling it the Kushite kingdom." And she said, and there are all kinds of people talking about this, and how it's like, they want to build like a new oasis, like a new Dubai or something like that. And I said, "What?" So immediately I sent you a text message. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
So something is moving right on this. And because when you told me about it in May, I was like, man, that's crazy. But I knew that there were too many synchronicities between what I was getting independent of you and what you showed me that you got, and then what I showed you, and we're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
That something is really happening.
It was all leading to the same place, to the same, through mathematics and geometry and through the history. And, you know, now that you said people were willing to make the states like the New Jerusalem, but it's not the right information in the land. Like they said, if you want to reset everything, you have to go back to the very origin of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in Israel 2 weeks before the war started, I was in Mount Tabor, close by Nazareth. And
you were in Israel when I was at the UN.
Yeah, exactly. And I was connecting with Melchizedek, a priest, one of the first priests of Jerusalem. And he said two things to me, mainly. One was, actually more things, but one of the first things that he said is, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, well, I'm leading a group, like, through Israel. And he said, why? And because, I don't know, because they want me to. And he said, but this is not your land. Why are you here? Like, are you here because you want to be like those masters that walk this land? And I was like, oh my gosh, like, no, no, I don't want to be that. So go away. This is not your land. And I said, okay. And he said, this is not your land. Plus, soon this land will be covered in ashes. A war is coming, he said. And this was 2 weeks before everything started to happen. A war is coming. And when everything is covered in ashes, the task of those who are awakened will be to find the sparks in between. That was the first thing that he said. And the second one was, so now go back to the land that you belong, which is Egypt. Go back and open the doors to the place where everything started. And let us go back to the very origin of the people that live here. Like, we all came from the Nile. And we must go back. So when you were talking about this New Jerusalem thing, not talking about Judaism, talking about the land, talking about the people that moved through, was like, there is something waiting there, because south of Egypt was the very beginning of the consciousness that led the process of all the planet. So all the history of the planet was born there. And it's the only place in the world that doesn't have nation, neither country. It's weird. It's something
it's very weird.
Waiting for, and it doesn't matter who does it. Like, I know that there are people that has more abilities to do something there than I do. But I think that there are many things that needs to be open in another level before something actually happens there. And I think that's part of my task. So
it's so interesting you say that, because I saw a map. I first saw it a long time ago, but I'd forgotten about it. I saw it in Florence. The map was it was pre-Columbian, so pre-Christopher Columbus. It's 1457 was the date on the map. Fra Mauro map, M-A-U-R-O. On the map, it shows the known world at the time. So it's kind of like looking at a Perry Reese map, you know, the ones that show Antarctica and all this. It's kind of interesting to see what people thought and what they understood at that time. And it shows Egypt. And in place of the name of the Nile, it doesn't say the Nile, it says Gihon. That's the name of the river, Gihon. So in northern Egypt or lower Egypt, it was referred to as Gihon River, which is a reference to Cush.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the river that comes from the Cushite
Yeah.
lands, right? Because it comes from the mountains down, and then it empties into the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
And what was interesting also, I looked at the Giza Plateau, and where there should be 3 pyramids, there were 5 drawn into the map. And this was a very, very detailed map. And it was around the same time as well, not long after I went into Menkaure Pyramid and saw all over the walls what looked like a Garden of Eden scene. Even though it's not really a Garden of Eden scene, it's actually entrance into New Jerusalem scene. And the walls are covered with Staff of Hermes,
Yeah.
trees as well. They're etched. They're etched into the walls. And I immediately knew when I came in there that this was something, it was almost as if it's described also in religious texts. Ezekiel references this, where it's like a canopy of trees over a river. And the trees had 12 fruits on them, right? And there's some references also regarding this in the book of Revelations as well. And when you told me about Bir Tawil, I felt like there was somehow this immediate connection to what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And then that's when it came to the whole Mandelbrot set. And then I found that the Great Pyramid angle, the 51.8, 5 degrees or 4 degrees, is exactly the Mandelbrot set, which was kind of like mind-boggling. And then I realized as well that fits within it exactly the esoteric form of the New Jerusalem form.
Yeah.
So all of this is somehow connected, and we don't know how it's all connected.
But everything leads to it. When I was doing the ceremony, between all these conflicts and duality and everything, one of the answers that I received was there was only one person that knew how to escape this system because he found the middle way of the fractalization. Who did that? Buddha. And suddenly I became a black hole, and everything was created around me, but I was a black hole, and everything was projected through that. And suddenly I felt I was like Buddha sitting, but actually when I was looking at it, it was
Mandelbrot set.
Exactly.
Yeah, it looks like Buddha. It looks like Buddha sitting there. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's the makers of the game. We have a sense of humor.
Oh,
least,
yeah,
right?
it's amazing.
It's kind
it's
of
beautiful
funny.
how it works.
It is beautiful. It's so amazing.
Yeah,
it's so amazing.
And
Down
as I said to my friends,
everything.
my friend who was present when we were connecting all these dots and everything and so many other things, he was like, "I need therapy. Like I cannot tell this in Christmas table." I was like, how can I share this with my family?
Oh my gosh.
Like it's too much. And I said, well, and is this all real? And I was like, and if it's not, we are having a lot of fun.
Oh gosh. So we're going to Egypt in December.
Yes.
And in my downloads, I've been getting that, and I presented on the mathematics of the pyramids that all relate to musical intervals. So the Great Pyramid has 2 roles of music. One is doubling the octave. The other is the square root of 2. So doubling the octave is representing the ascension out of the duality. So through the duality, the suffering and the pain and the difficulty, you can double the octave. It's about changing our perspective to a certain extent. The other 2 pyramids are the next musical intervals next to them, which is the Great Pyramid is 2 over 1 pi is the proportion, right? The Khafre Pyramid is 4 over 3, which is the perfect 5th in music and the perfect 4th. And then Menkaure Pyramid is 5 over 4 proportion, and that becomes the major 3rd and the minor 6th. And then the doubled octave. So then you have 8 of the musical intervals immediately covered by just the first 3 pyramids.
Yeah.
And exactly even in the order. So it starts at the center, right, which is the square root of 2. Then, because it creates like a hero's journey, I found. And then it goes to the stability, the feeling we get from the perfect 5th and the perfect 4th is stability. And the feeling we get from the major 3rd and the minor 6th is either love or heartbreak.
Yeah.
Depends on which way you look at it.
Yeah.
If you look at the pyramid, its height over 1/2 its base, it's love. If you look at the full base over the height, it's heartbreak. So it says something about duality and the experience. So the Khafre pyramid, I said already, makes the perfect circle for the feminine.
Mm-hmm.
The Menkaure pyramid makes the perfect square. Take 1/2 of its base and make a square. The proportion, it's 5/4. That creates a square with 4 as its side. And then it would be 16 for its perimeter and 16 for its area.
Mm-hmm.
The one that was missing in the Great Pyramid is a perfect squaring of the circle. So if you take a cross section of the pyramid, its area will be the same, right, as the, it will basically match the area of the circle. And the square that comes off of the Great Pyramid's base will have a perimeter that's equal to the circle that extends from the base of the pyramid to the top of the pyramid. So you have a perfect squaring of the circle, a balance between masculine and feminine is then achieved. Mm-hmm. So then what's missing is the perfect triangle. Yeah. Perfect triangle is a Philosopher's Stone triangle. It's the one on the screen there. Yeah. The exact same shape. It's the one that has the area that's equal to its perimeter. So the square root of 2 as its base is duality. Mm-hmm. But when we add it to the square root of 3, it makes pi. The square root of 2 plus the square root of 3 is almost perfectly pi. It's just slightly different. Yeah. So what it does is it turns the lead of the square root of 2, the suffering, the difficulty, into, when you add it to the square root of 3, it closes the circle. So the trinity now is back. Yeah. From the 2 of the dissonance, the discord. It comes back to a full circle, and the length that the square root of 2 represents is 161.8 degrees exactly, which is the golden ratio. Mm-hmm. It turns the lead of the square root of 2 into gold. So with the divine knowledge of this triangle pyramid, the perfect triangle pyramid, which is the one on Abu Rawash, the bigger one, would have been 600 feet high total, higher, 120 feet higher than the Great Pyramid. If we can activate these pyramids with the musical notes, because now we know the musical notes exactly. So we're going to go and we're going to do some activation work.
Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. And I think it's going to be, look, if it does nothing, then we had fun doing it.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But I have a feeling it's going to do something.
You have to practice many times.
You have to practice many times.
Of course, it's like if you want to learn how to play the piano and it's the first time and you go to a concert. No, you cannot play a concert. You have to try it for years before you get hired for a concert.
And we have some amazing people going on this trip as well. When I told Billy Carson about it, you know Billy, right? Billy was already scheduled to have his wedding in Bora Bora the same week. And he called me back and he said, I changed my wedding. He'd already bought everything. He changed his wedding so he could be there for the whole thing with he and Elizabeth. So we have some really amazing people going on this trip. And I have a feeling that obviously things are going to continue to get strange in the world. But if we can get the right voices together, which I know ultimately it will because everything is set, then I think we could potentially activate what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah. I believe so. Yeah. And of course, as closer we get to reveal it, the most chaotic will be the world around. And
the Enlightenment is born from this almost, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, totally. And there was once, usually people tell me, you're not afraid of being, I don't know, targeted by people that are against for this to happen, like for the change to happen, for like all this, I don't know, secret societies trying to prevent for the awareness of the planet. And I usually tell, I'm not against them. Like, I'm not against the people that is ruling the world today. I'm not even in their game. Like, we are doing something completely different, which is not going against a system or going against someone.
That's important.
It's just about revealing the magical structure of how the network is, and how by finding the right nodes and everything you can improve the system. That there are people that are trying to control and everything, it didn't stop evolution, it didn't stop technology, it didn't stop us doing all this as we are doing it. So it's not about I think that the people that actually evolved and created new tools for humanity were the people that weren't thinking about enemies. They were thinking about improvement of the system, not enemies. So that's why I think people like us are not targeted by anybody, because it's when you start a war, you will find a war. And
this is true. This is so true.
And
this is
so
what's
that's why I
happening in
think
the
that the
world.
change can be possible when you put them all within the change, not trying to
We're not
take
fighting anyone.
out someone in order
Yes.
to find the change.
It's like Buckminster Fuller said. You cannot make change by fighting the old.
No,
Instead, spend your energy on building the new.
exactly. Totally.
And I think that's where we're going. And I think that's where the world is going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Matías, I want to thank you for being here with me. Thank you for your friendship. It's been amazing to get to know you. And it's fun to meet someone who can give me an entirely different perspective on the things I'm also seeing.
Yeah.
Which is powerful. It's very, very powerful.
For me, it's amazing your confirmations of things that I think I'm crazy, but you put it in numbers.
Yeah, well, maybe
like,
we're both
yeah.
crazy together, but I do think that there's something to it, and I can't wait to introduce you to the other people as well, because I think what you're going to find is that we only have to organize it.
Oh yeah,
It's already built.
That's the whole thing.
The major work has been being done for 20 years, 30 years, 50 years or more. We just didn't know.
I think that sometimes it's not about what should we do. It's about having fun on saying, oh, you see, I saw this, I saw that.
Yes.
We're spending more time on that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that saying, oh, now the puzzle is formed, than actually discovering something.
I think the big thing that's going to happen also with Egypt in this next trip is the final stage, which is represented by Menkaure.
Mm-hmm.
Entrance into, I had this big realization not long ago. I realized that enlightenment is when the expression of love that you experience and feel exceeds and supersedes the desire for one objective truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That you realize that love is the one truth that connects everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's why we're experiencing this world, this life. The one divided itself into the many simply for the joy of experiencing itself through our unique eyes of perception. So each one of us is serving a purpose that's a powerful purpose that gives more information to the one, source consciousness, to become more wise.
Yeah.
By learning and feeling empathy for every perspective. And I think it's important to feel the empathy too. I really do. It's easy to get callous and to say, oh, we live in a simulation game and we could just laugh at all of it. But actually, I think we miss the point if that's how we feel.
Exactly.
We should feel and feel the emotions, because every emotion that we don't feel is what brings us the sickness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, is the key for the connectivity of everything. The cells in our brain make synapses because they are in love to each other. So you cannot think or connect information if they don't feel each other. So
make love, not war.
yes.
Thank you so much, Matías. Good to have you here.